Today, it's Edwins' Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to this post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. And it's another Monday, so another Edwin. Hi, Edwin.
Hey, Choi, Martin.
Very good. Something about the new year, right?
Yeah, look, wishing you a great and prosperous 2022. We're at it's Chinese New Year's Eve today. Tomorrow is the beginning of the year of the tiger. You know, mine's a little bit more robust than the ones predicted over in the one predicted over in China, the melancholic anorexic tiger. But mine's a little bit more robust.
Yeah, there are a few negative vibes coming out from that quarter, right? What with natural disasters and economic slowdown and the property sector wobbling in China, to name just a few.
Well, that's right. Yeah, we've got the second tier cities. They were already going into huge numbers of repossessions, mortgage repossessions. That's in the second tier cities. The first tier cities are not as prominent, obviously, because as we all know that there's a lot of support and there's a lot of support structure going on there because they can't afford to watch them go down in like a lead balloon, effectively. But look, outside of that, Martin, it's I was interested to read your video today on the watch your video on with more housing debt recorded. Records have been broken with housing debt and all sorts of debt. So it's I think when we start analysing and seeing what's happening in China, it's also it's going to be very interesting what the property market holds for us here in Australia.
Well, of course, in China, they've actually reduced interest rates. So they've wound back the capital that banks have to hold. And there are various schemes being cooked up to try and allow property companies to get more credit from somewhere. Right? So it's pretty crazy. Whereas here, of course, now the mainstream talk is suddenly, in high inflation, RBA's got to put the rates up. My own view is the RBA will not do anything quick. Not only have they got a face to save, so they're still talking about 2024 until very recently, but also they'll be able to say, well, the inflation, the underlying inflation, it's still not at the top of our range. We've got to let it have a bit of time. So conveniently, they'll put it past the election. So after May, Westpac's saying August, maybe. I think that rates will probably only edge up slowly. But I do think that the trajectory of rates will be up for some time. And then suddenly we see the economy begin to sort of wobble, and at that point the rates will come down again. So it's a bit of a roller coaster.
Oh, look, definitely, I can see that trend happening, and you've hit the nail on the head. Nobody's. I think they'll be under a lot of pressure by the current government not to put the rates up before the federal election. I mean that'll certainly be the end of the Liberal Party of the coalition that are in power at the moment. So it's definitely I stand with you. It will be definitely a no for now, not till post the election, because I think that'll be basically just playing Russian roulette. What was interesting as to listening to your video that you put out today, Martin, the business credit was up 8.4%, but I mean, it's not not in my view. It's something that would have been it's foreseeable, because obviously a lot of businesses are pretty much underwater and they need a lot of credit. So I can only imagine that they're also pulling that line of credit from the principal places of residence, which is what you and I have been reporting for a very, very long time. We said that 2019, I was very confident that there was a lot of real estate offices that were going to be closed down, because listings dropped down to almost 50% of what they were, and it's listings on market and commissions that pay the bills of the office, not the property market going up. as such. And I really believe that at that time, 30 to 40% of offices, which there are about 8,500 registered offices in New South Wales, would have closed down. But for the pandemic, that saved that industry with JobKeeper and the like. But now we're starting to get to the point here now where the rubber meets the road, and it's going to be interesting moving forward how many survive, unless the listing numbers clock up to 2018 numbers. I don't think that there's going to be a lot of saving grace for the real estate offices, because there is, and small business, unfortunately. But I think with business credit lines going increasing, and the increase that you've noticed in your surveys, I can only imagine that would be the case. Would that be a reflection of what you're seeing, Martin? Or?
Well, we certainly know that a lot of businesses have working capital issues. So in other words, they don't have enough money to be able to pay all the bills. And some of those bills, like the tax man, the tax man comes first. So they're going to have to grab some more credit. I think the other point to make here is that the distribution of credit is not uniform across businesses, from small business to large businesses and from different industries. So we know that in some sectors of industry, particularly those relating to holiday and travel and accommodation, are really very much under the pump, particularly down the East Coast. And it's interesting that New South Wales, of course, they announced a $1 billion package to help people with a fall in turnover because of the unofficial COVID, right? So, or the unofficial COVID lockdowns. So we are not out of the woods yet. And the point is, the longer it goes on, the more difficult it is for businesses to pull back. Because if you think about it, it's like having a pitcher of water with a small hole in the bottom, right? And whilst you can hold that up for a period of time, if the water goes on draining out, unless something comes in the top, you're going to run out of water. Now, I think that's the same analogy for cash flow. A lot of businesses are not getting a lot coming in the top. They're still having to sink the costs out the bottom. And so the longer this goes on, the more likely it is that businesses are going to potentially, particularly small businesses, I think are going to really struggle. I'm going to talk about more of that in another of my shows when I look at the SME surveys that we've just run for January. We'll get those out in a few days. But interestingly, of course, in China, it's also true, isn't it, that small businesses in particular are under the gun.
Oh, well, that's right. And but the government have been preparing the mainland Chinese. I mean, for almost 15 months now, they've been talking about prepare for famine and prepare for the likelihood of war. So under those two scenarios, people are really being batten down the hatches and somewhat preparing. And then we start getting the business statistics that have been coming out of late from our WeChat chatters, and we see that in 2020, 3 million small businesses were liquidated, basically closed shop. And that's if the numbers are correct. If they are the true numbers, one would think it's only worse. But the 2021 numbers, Martin, they were upwards of 10 million. I mean, that is an incredible amount of businesses closing down, regardless of the size of the country, and it's really affecting it's not necessarily affecting the top class, but it's the middle class, the upper middle class that are being affected. And these are the people that have got investment properties here in Australia. And this is our word of caution. And this is where we're going to see, and I believe we're going to see apartment listing numbers surge on market. And they have been very strong. They're coming on market, and also not far behind our houses as well.
Yeah, well, it's interesting looking at the high-rise sector and in some of those suburbs. And I've had a few conversations this last week with property investors who are sitting on these apartments, scratching their head about what to do. They see more coming on. Others are on the market. Do they hold off? Do they try and come in as well? Do they take a bit of a haircut and just get away? It's very interesting that more and more actually it's the bank that's beginning to tap them on the shoulder and say, we're not sure that you've actually got a sensible proposition here. So there is indirect pressure being put on them by lenders to put their properties on the market. So I think we're going to see a considerable spike in high-rise listings in the next few weeks. And I think that we will see prices, therefore, beginning to ease back. The question for me now is, will it spill over more broadly into the house sector as well, which is, it could do, but who knows? It's difficult to tell. But certainly high-rise, not looking very happy at the moment.
No, not at all. And let's also make it very clear that the banks are very, they take the view, investment properties, they take it a much different view, and they will put a lot more pressure on investors than if it's a principal place of residence. So there's a big difference there in the amount of pressure that the banks put on or the lenders put on is vastly different. And secondly, if it's an investment property, obviously it's somewhat of a business proposition, which the banks look at it as a business proposition. Yep. And thirdly, a lot of these, unfortunately, may well be cross-collateralized with a lot of other properties. So we're going to see we may well see a snowball effect. But in terms of housing market, the apartment market in Sydney, whether it's going to be affecting the housing market, Martin, I think it's going to be affecting, it would have more of a direct effect into the Queensland housing market, the investment market up there. Because don't forget, there's a lot of Sydney-based investors that have got houses in Queensland. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Queensland in one of our articles as well, and also some of the chatter that some of our clients have been getting from Queensland agents directly as well. I'll share a little bit about that as to see what's happening. So I've sort of see more of an effect on housing over in Queensland. Particularly out in the fringes, out in the your Red Plains, your Ipswiches, and your Logans, Logan Central, Logan City, and all those areas, and a lot of the subdivisions in between, because there's a hell of a lot of housing up there. And I've said for many years, for almost 2 decades, Brisbane or Queensland has a very transient rental population, and yet they seem to have more subdivisions than they do here in Sydney from a lot of the investors that have parked themselves up there and have bought up there from interstate and also from overseas. But although we are seeing a lot of areas go up in value dramatically, because of the people that have moved up from predominantly from Victoria and also from New South Wales, basically retirees and paying silly money for properties up there. Some of the chatter from the local agents is, they believe that it's going to have the life expectancy of that is really going to come to an end around Easter, and could potentially go backwards a lot, very quickly post Easter.
Yeah, I think it is interesting, and certainly the Queensland investment sector has traditionally had very high yields relative to pretty much every other state, and that's why people are looking up there. But I do see some early signs of that beginning to change, and it won't take much to tip it over. It won't take it much. It's quite interesting. Yeah, it could move quite quickly.
It won't take it much to tip it over, because Queensland seemed to, from my experience going up there, looking at properties up there prior to the 2000 Olympics and around about that time, it was rather interesting. And from there, my observations have been that there's a hell of a lot more subdivisions and further out west than what you could see here in Sydney. But then again, Martin, I sort of feel, and look, not because I've lived in New South Wales all my life that I've spent here in Australia, but because historically and even now, I feel that New South Wales is the centre and will continue to be the centre and the basis for jobs and future businesses to come in and grow and emerge and develop. I sort of see Queensland more of a retirement type of lifestyle scenario, and the key industry that they were relying on predominantly one of the key industries was tourism, and unless the international borders are open up, which is another article that we're going to be talking about later on, they're really behind the eight ball. So outside of the migration for the fear of the Krong and COVID and any other variants and the cheap properties up there, and the fact that you could work from home, so therefore you could work remotely from anywhere in the world, not just Queensland, but anywhere in the world. It certainly changed the demographics a little bit. But, the chatter from the agents up there are saying that it's going to be short-lived, unfortunately, and the prices could go, and historically have gone backwards in Queensland a lot quicker than in Victoria and in Sydney when the market does turn around.
No, absolutely, yeah. So the argument is always that it's a bit twitchy up there. Talking of twitchy, of course, there's another little strategy here, right? Home supermarkets is the way to go, evidently.
Well, look, this takes garage sales to the next level, Martin. Yeah, WeChat chatters. I only just found out on the weekend through our WeChat chatters that what's emerging, the emerging trend is, in areas in Sydney where there's a lot of obviously Asian or Chinese residents, communities. They're putting together these garage supermarkets where you can literally go in and buy your groceries. And there's all sorts of things that are happening. You go in there, you buy groceries, but not only that, Martin. Let's say you've got food at home that hasn't gone past its use by date. You can actually take it there, and you could actually swap for something else. Now you go to the Chinese markets. We went to the Chinese markets over or shops in Chatswood when we were looking for some property over the weekend, and quickly ducked into one of the Chinese grocery stores, and it was half empty. It was really half empty. So we chased a couple of our WeChat chatterer friends, and they basically said, "Oh, look, my parents have just got this, that, and that around the corner." From a residential home, and say, hold on a minute, did they have is it a home convenience store scenario? Yeah, your typical corner store milk bar of the old days. No, it's just somebody set up a little shopping, a little warehouse, like a miniature version of Costco. In the garage. You basically go in there, and it's like a little Aldi store. You just walk through, the aisles that they've created, and you just pick what you want. And if you got goods that you're not eating, you can take it there, and they'll give you, they'll trade. It's really, really interesting. So it is taking the garage sales to the next level. But then again, Martin, if you're in bed with the politicians, you could also make millions of dollars selling rats tests from eastern suburbs, 2 bedrooms apartments as well.
What do they do that? Evidently.
Well, the story's there. I'm not going to name the politician and the articles there if they want to chase it. But instant millionaires. I think the article said instant millionaires in the rats economy. I mean, go figure. What next? Seriously, what next? But of course, you've got to have to do that. You've got to be able to have those political connections, because without those political connections, how the hell can you supply the government with what 26 or something $million worth of rats, rapid antigen tests, and make millions of dollars through transactions? I mean, that's really taking garage sales to the next level. But we've got even a better one, Martin, with again through our WeChat chatters, those little brothers and little sisters that have obviously been caught out because of the crime, because of the mandates, because of what you have to do now in order to enter major work sites, and they've been pretty much without ongoing work. Well, a group of them have now been caught. I don't know whether it has been already reported in the mainstream media, but through my channels, I found out that there's a group that have been caught here in Sydney. Get this, with 19,000 1.5 meter marijuana plants in a house in Sydney. I can't give you the address, but that is a hell of a lot of plants in one house.
Yeah, the day of the Triffids, absolutely. Oh, crazy times. And talking of crazy times, people are heading back to the cities, according to the AFR. You know, the reverse migration is now in force as sea and tree changers head back to the cities, says the AFR.
Well, that's right, and this is something that, this is an article that caught my attention, and albeit it's mainly talking about, a Queenslander or a company or executives in Queensland going from the Gold Coast, going back, wanting to go back to the vibrant metropolises of the city. Is that going to catch on in Sydney? Is that going to catch on in Melbourne? Is the $64,000 question? I don't know. I don't know. It's time will tell. But obviously, that is also going to affect home values once again. And then obviously, if they're bought in the regional areas here in Sydney and they've got to move back into the city, well, then you've got to sell. So what's going to happen with the regional markets and so forth? I don't know, Martin. I want to think that there's going to be a lot of reluctance, and I think that this is a little bit of a pie in the sky or dream, given the fact that companies are still very much kosher with people working remotely and working from home. It's only until the people that are working remotely, or the companies that have got the people working remotely, find out more and more that if they can have people working remotely here, they can also have people working remotely overseas, albeit with greater risk of security and so forth. But you know what? When businesses struggle, paying somebody $250,000 a year, as opposed to getting two people, at $75,000 or $100,000 a year to do more work than the individual getting 250. It starts to conjure up all sorts of ideas for local companies. But obviously, security, internet security, and that topic is an issue. But yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts, Martin? Do you think people are going to make go back to the vibrant metropolises? They're going to give away the beach and give away the veggie beds and koi ponds in the mountains to go back to the shitty coffee shops in the inner west?
Well, I can tell you this. If you go around the central parts of Sydney at the moment, in fact, Cookie Boy seems to post regularly on just how buoyant, the railway station is, or the central, and there's nobody around. So I wouldn't say it's particularly buoyant at the moment. First point. Second is, in my surveys, I ain't seen it yet. I'm seeing a lot of people who are very comfortable having moved out, not least because, of course, the bug is still about and looks to be continuing to be about for some time. And they actually quite like being out of the smoke and out of the noise. So I'm a little bit skeptical. It feels to me a little bit like a real estate beat up.
It does. It does, and but it was an interesting article nonetheless, because it also coincided with the next article that also read during the week, and that was international borders could open before Easter. That's but there are caveats.
Yeah, well, I mean, there takes two to tango, right? So, for example, international borders between Australia and New Zealand, right? We might want to open our border, but New Zealand is still keeping theirs firmly shut at the moment. I know that from personal experience. I've got somebody here from New Zealand who can't get back.
Exactly, and the WA border, that country over there called Western Australia, or I think they're going to change the name anyway. They've got their border shut. Pretty soon they're going to have the military on the border as well. I think I could only imagine, but. Yeah, look, I think that and again, it's going to be it's a political ping pong, isn't it? It's a political hot potato. Do they open up before the election, post the election? What's going to happen? It's going to go back to the big push for an economic recovery, and the caveat that they put on there is providing, or allegedly the Prime Minister saying that providing that the health. The hospitals can cope with any rises of the people infected with the Cron and so forth. I mean, we can we can talk about till the cows come home as to why they didn't get that, why they hadn't prepared. Why in the world did we build mega stadiums and demolish existing stadiums to build bigger stadiums, and yet put health and other logical infrastructure such as education and schools and so forth, and and hospitals and other types of facilities that would help the community. But now we were focused on bloody cricket, rugby, and every other in the aerial ping pong that sometimes people in Sydney get all hyped about.
Well, interestingly, there was a lot of talk some months ago about we should build these large out-of-town isolation centres. I think, wasn't there one up in Queensland and meant to be one around Sydney and one in Melbourne, right? It's gone very quiet. Have you noticed?
Oh, look, it has. And I think it's called the Joe Rogan effect.
Absolutely. I wonder how much money was spent, quote, wasted, on things that haven't been completed and probably never will be completed, right? This is another case when if you don't have the right plans and strategies, ahead of time, you make it up as you go along, and sometimes you make mistakes. I think this is another example, really. So we'll see how it goes. I think there's more to go down this road before we actually see the end of all of this stuff. And of course, the latest version of Omicron is now a slightly different version 2, which has slightly different characteristics. So we'll see.
Yeah, look, all that to the side. It's regardless of what major political party gets takes the reins moving forward, the international borders are going to have to open up, and I think it's going to be before the middle of the year, before the end of financial year. But personally, I think it could well be around Easter, between Easter. It'll be on this half of the year. There's going to be
before the election.
Yeah,
funny that.
So, look, but I guess from our point of view, Martin, like we've been saying, there's a hell of a lot of families, PR visa holders that are ready, willing, and able, and are already poised to basically come over, regardless of the BS that comes out on Twitter, how people are fed up with Australia, going back on getting away from Australia, and Australia's bad country, this, that, and that. Look, name me another country that's doing better, that you could literally pack your bags up and go to and set up shop. Because I don't know. Look, I've got family. I've got family and friends in Europe. I've got family and friends all over the States, in South America, and parts of Asia as well. And it's I thank God that we live here. We live here in Australia, and outside of the Krong, outside of these mandates, a lot of other reasons why people want to come to Australia, and one of the main ones is the security and safety that people feel living in Australia, and to bring up young families, and quite frankly, in their eyes, property is still somewhat cheap. These are the professionals that are coming over. So both the reverse migration, so-called reverse migrants coming back from the tree changes and the seed changes into the centers, into the hubs, the international borders opening up, it will have an effect on property prices, home values, on prices, if the numbers don't continue to tick up the way they have been doing.
Well, let's talk about the numbers then, because they are somewhat higher. I think, 10% on market higher than last year now?
Look, they are. And that screenshot that I shared with you, that was my bad. It is a 2021 screenshot. I just noted it down on Twitter as 2020. Yeah, because it was early in the year where we're still thinking that we're in that previous year as we're going into, before we start getting used to riding the right year at the end of the.
So just to be clear, 13,981 was 2021, and 15,103 is the same in 2022.
That's correct.
Yep.
So we've got 10% more house listings. So to me, it seems like the fear of the Krong is not as big as people are sort of more fearful. I should say people are more fearful of potential interest rate rises, which would obviously mean that in their eyes that home values will drop. There have been some mainstream media reporters saying that the property market will is cooling. We're also going to share some other tweets that I picked up over the week as well that reflect that. So I guess they're more fearful of the principal places of residence or the home values going down than they are of the Krong, because even auction numbers are almost double what they were same time last year. So it's from a buyer's point of view, the numbers are looking healthy. They're ticking up strongly, and if they've got to continue to tick up. And we've almost got to get back to between the 2018, 2019 numbers in order to stave off the reverse migrants, the reverse migration, and the new migrants coming in from overseas with the numbers coming in. And I think that'll be keep supply and demand steady, and we could have a steady market as opposed to one that's going north because people have all of a sudden withdrawn the home listings off market. But again, I do say that the apartment is going to be a different kettle of fish, because all I see and the conversations from what's happening in China, what's happening with the Chinese investors, the pressure that they're in, not only there, but also the local Chinese investors, the chatter on the WeChat chatter with regards to what they're doing, close the shops in where they're paying rent, and setting up a shop in the backyard, and it's because they communicate through WeChat, they communicate through these platforms, and they're able to guess what? Take home or make the same amount of money than they would otherwise make in a shop, selling groceries in a shop, Chinese groceries in a shop, where most of it gets eaten up by the overheads.
Absolutely. But coming back to the auctions, it's quite interesting, right? Because there are some very suspicious statistics being thrown around as to what the clearance rates were, right? And it's worth just reflecting on what we mean by a clearance rate, right? Because effectively you can have a lot that were perhaps going to market without them going to market, and then of course people can mess around with the numbers. And there's some very interesting comments on clearance rates.
Yeah, look, there are, and I picked up a few of these tweets. And look, and I think we're going to call this segment, Martin. We're going to call this segment the statistics. Right. So this is one of our followers. His name's Punkit Shah, and he goes by the handle of @Punkit16. That's my play on words. Yeah, we're going to call this statistics. So there you go. I told you, Punkit, that I was going to call it that, because he shares a lot of info, because he's obviously looking at property in the around the Parramatta area. So in one of his DMs, he says, "Hey mate, how was your Saturday? Overall, 40% auction clearance rates was observed amongst the 17 auctions I observed over this week. 9 passed in and 8 sold. The majority of the properties had 2 bidders, and most auctions finished after 3rd or 4th bids. Most vendors reduced the reserve price to complete the sale. Only 1 property sold over reserve, which with a price of 180k over, gives the address. Only 2 bidders again, but they obviously went toe to toe. There was 41 bids. Take home messages: fewer buyers registering, fewer buyers are bidding. Most auctions are long, 45 to 90 minutes without much action. More stock is coming, and more auctions coming in February." And then he gives us he sent me a spreadsheet, which happy for you to share the spreadsheet with our viewers, in his notes on the properties that he observed on the Saturday. And then the next one is from Tarek, and his he looks at the black and white numbers, not all the fluffy stuff that we get from the mainstream. And he notes down that Sydney, 40.8% as opposed to 75.3% this time last year. This is clearance, and Melbourne at 43.6%. A much weaker first few steps. First few steps out of the gate versus the start of 2021, but it's still very, very early days, and it is. Then the next tweet is from Tom Panos. Tom Panos is an auctioneer. He's a very a real estate influencer in Sydney. A lot of people know Tom Panos, and here, his comments are rather interesting in his tweet. He writes, "Well, it has not been a great start to the auction year. I had 3 scheduled, 2 went ahead, 0 sold. The market is going from nuts to normal. What's the buyer's energy like in your area?" Now, let me say this. Tom Panos generally, on a given day, he would do anywhere between 9 to 12 auctions on average. So yeah, there's a lot happening out there, and I like the on the ground stuff and what people are sharing, in their areas. But it's really a reflection of what we're seeing, and it's really a reflection on the numbers that the Tarek puts out, and also when you start referencing later on with Louis Christopher, with SQM, you'll see that there is a strong correlation in the numbers, as opposed to the docs numbers or as opposed to the domain numbers.
Well, what's in the number? That's right. So the 3 questions is, well, how many were actually going to come on the market? How many actually went to market and were actually presented, and how many sold, and sold on the day, or I suppose after the day as well? And it's interesting that almost always some of the experts seem to manage to be able to cook the books. So effectively the clearance rate sounds always very high, despite the fact that, of course, the universal truth that you're much more likely to report into the system if there was a sale compared with not a sale. And that's one of the problems, of course. So in fact, you often get an overstatement of the true clearance rate. And Louis Christopher's numbers, I think, are closer than anybody's in terms of what's really going on.
Oh, look, definitely. And this is going to be the interesting thing, Martin, that moving forward now, we're getting and the so far, or this week, where the market really starts for 2022. Always after Australia Day weekend, or Australia Day celebrations, whatever, because this is when the kids go back to school. People are more focused. They're pretty much now entrenched in work, and it's business time. It's moving forward. It's it's business time, because it's between now and things will slow down a little bit more. Will slow down towards winter and moving into winter, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens there as well. So again, let's keep on looking at the numbers, because listings on market and what's happening with that trend is going to, in my view, have more or just as much of an effect with what we're going to be seeing the RBA do with interest rate hikes or staying as per for the next 12 months. Because if the numbers don't continue to tick upwards, and we do end up seeing the new PR visa holders come in, and we do end up seeing the reverse migrants coming back, obviously it's going to put pressure. So I just hope that we don't get another scare, or another variant, or God knows what else, and people take the listings off market, because that's obviously going to be a little bit painful. Then we're going to be looking at people, going to be looking a little bit more closely at apartments if they want to, dip their toes into the property arena.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we might have a war in Europe or something else, or some external force might come in, or the RBA might surprise everybody and start lifting rates sooner. There's a few pigs just flown past the window there. So, the point is there's a level of uncertainty about what's going on, right? And that's why you need to keep your eye on the numbers and track them and don't take the high level waffle from, you know, the mainstream media or some of these portals, right? You got to look at the numbers, because that's the best way to understand what's really going on.
Yeah, and our the commentary from our side is, and from our clients and from the agents that also follow us up when we've inspected properties that have poised to go to auction. You know, they've been converting, a lot have been converting to private treaty because there's not a lot of interest. At certain levels, of the market, there's not a lot of interest, so therefore they've got to quickly go to a private treaty. There's no point in holding an auction if nobody's going to turn up, because then it makes the sale a dead sale, and potential buyers are going to be negotiating down. They're not going to necessarily be negotiating up, because all the emotion's gone. So you've got a lot of agents, not a lot, but you've got a number of agents calling and saying, well, would you like to make an offer? Because we've got something on the table now. I've had one in the lower mountains as well, and there's one in the Shire with myself personally, and the team have had one or two in the North Shore, and one in the inner west of similar vein of conversations. But it's interesting that they're pushing for for an offer because obviously people are sitting back. And so the dynamics changing. There's not a lot of positive talk that what one would think, to create that emotion and that frenzy. But then again, here, point proven that it only takes 1,000 or so numbers on market to change the sentiment of the market, Martin, because we really are a small market. We're not really a big market when you think about it. And if we're going to end up with another 2,000 or 3,000 home listings on market, what's that going to do? Then basically it will be a smorgasbord for buyers.
Absolutely, it will be a marginal question, right? So it is that small number of up or down relative to the stable state that really has a significant impact, and that's what people sometimes forget. I think that there is some very interesting dynamics that can move quite significantly and definitely move the market. But anyway, before we finish, tip of the week. Nice straightforward one tonight, Edwin.
Stay calm. The evidence so far is that at least numbers on market are coming on strong. They may not have come up in your area of search, but they are coming on across Sydney. So in general, there's a hell of a lot of properties that we were looking at and chasing, pre-Christmas, pre-New Year, that still haven't come back on market. So this is why, and these are home listings that I'm talking about. So that they still haven't come back on market. They got taken off before the end of the year because of the scare, and they come off early, and they still haven't come back on. And agents are basically waiting on the owners to put them back on. So that's I can only see the numbers ticking up a lot stronger. So stay calm. If you don't get it at the price that you want to pay for it, sit back and and just set your price that you're happy to walk away from it. And if you don't get it at that price or below, just stay calm, and enjoy the Chinese New Year, because I think it's gonna hold a lot of surprises for buyers moving forward.
Yeah, and as I always remind people, there is always more property, right?
That's right.
Always more property. Enjoy the Chinese Lunar New Year. And Edwin, thank you for your time tonight. Great to catch up with you, and we'll do it all again next week, eh?
Well, definitely. And don't forget to eat your sticky rice, Martin, this week. I'll mail some to you.
Oh. Probably won't arrive until 2 weeks later, and it'll probably walk its way from the letterbox.
Well, you can always use it as burley and go fish.
Maybe, or maybe I could use it as filler to sort of fill up some of the holes in the wall. Thanks, Edwin. See you next time. See ya.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
Bye.